Hey you guys, this is Tired Goth, and we're watching the computer show. I actually want to revise the entire show from yesterday because I don't feel that I actually recorded it properly. um, a lot of information was left out. I don't feel I was properly, you know, talking, speaking. I don't feel I was properly conveying myself whatsoever because I was not in a good mental place. So I'm gonna try this again. Alright, so Computer Show episode 66 is basically talking about my feelings and my comprehension of what I'm noticing about the tech field, where its framework is headed, and where security and privacy matters are actually going in the way of the benefit of the people, which is actually like the purpose of all of this, really. So a lot of people have developed security and privacy tools. You have VPNs, you have proxies, you have SOX connections, you have you know onion layers for websites, for browsers, for various parts of the network communication. You have all of this. It's really great actually how all of this stuff is built and framed and put together so that people can utilize this to protect themselves. And what are they protecting themselves from? They're protecting themselves from people who are copying basically their personal information and using it for fraud. And the way that they copy this information when they're on, a decisive side of, I guess you could say, theft, right? When these thieves, and I don't mean it in a bad way, I understand people go through things in their lives, but when these people who make a living out of thieving other people's things for whatever purpose they feel it serves for them, and I'm not saying it's right, I'm saying this is what happens sometimes. These people are able to use the weaknesses in other people's networks to get this done. And what it really is a balancing act when you have proper network security and privacy versus the natural enemy, right? The natural predator. So when people tell you not to use a VPN or not to cover your tracks or whatever because it makes it easier for people like that to get caught, I understand that perspective of it, but what we actually need for a majority who are just minding their business and looking into how they can fortify themselves as users of their owned devices is a lower layer of security that actually makes it difficult for anyone to find them, which is rather the purpose and the point and the discussion that I was attempting to put forth, but I was very distracted. So I just wanted to revise this and make it um, I guess, organized, right? So I organized my thoughts. I meditated on what I was trying to say. And what I was trying to say is the type of information that is available to us actually already provides us options to build, you know, um, threat models and responses to the threat models. So you have SOX proxies, which are already used. They're already peer-to-peer. You can post your own and create your own network, which arguably is not the simplest thing to do if you're a beginner, but it's possible. It's also easy if you have a friend or a person who is willing to explain to you how these connections work and benefit you as a person engaging in privacy and security acts to protect your own possessions. Not every person who is interested in their privacy is a person worth, I guess you could say attacking for that same thing. But I understand how it happens because a lot of people who are like security and privacy first have historically and traditionally been people who had something to hide, but it's not like that anymore. There's just way too much being stored on phones, on devices, on tablets. You have creators who are trying to protect their privacy and their work so it doesn't get stolen, and it has been. You have people who are trying to protect their banking assets on hot wallets, which I don't even know how it's possible to do that. Even the central the central banking digital currency claims to have an offline app that's safe. It's not. You can read the documentation on the Patreon that I put together about it when I actually sat there and read it the first week that it dropped. I mean, I've been following this for a while. I've been speaking. Whatever it is you're trying to build in the way of your privacy, security, and these tools altogether are able to be built, you know? It's not something that needs to be, it's not something that needs to be looked at like it has to be outsourced to somebody, like there's always going to be a higher authority above you telling you what to do. It's not. It's really not. Um, you have these options to look into how to build these things, but I wanted to pose to the public that the option to do this is actually just a matter of looking into remote systems or remote models that will bring a trigger for a VPN to turn on at the core of a boot process. Now, for a lot of people who are more familiar with the GNU plus Linux system of development, the GNU plus Linux kernel modules that load from .xzm files, I mean, this is stuff that has been around for a very, very, very long time. Like, really, I mean, it's no exaggeration, like 30 years already, and some people still haven't heard of it. I would say maybe even 40 years or something. You know, it's an Arch-based type of boot system. It's a lot. It's very cool to see it, but uh, what it is really in practice, you know, after having reflected on it, is just a matter of putting together similar Android types and allowing this to um, boot similar file sets, similar constructions for the file sets, similar boot processes that will kind of, I guess, put a system up trigger for a SOX proxy, an independently hosted onion service, a proxy connection or protective layer of encryption over the lowest layers of the system, and then allowing that to travel up through the higher levels of the OSI is my understanding of this. And while I had a development project, a concept, and I tried building some of this back in, I want to say May 2023. It was April, or I believe it started in April 2023. I was typing all of this stuff into like a text document in Nano, you know, and I was just putting together this idea that the JRE housing as a like a little container for this stuff can actually fit theoretically what is necessary to run a trigger start for a VPN to run, and for the VPN to not be a standard VPN, but a VPN that works similarly to LokiNet, for example, which is it's similar to a peer-to-peer hosted network, but it's more just like a self-hosted VPS network that takes the VPS and turns it into something that runs its own independent onion server. So it would almost be like its own independent leaf that allows other people to hop on to those leaves or whatever leaf is running as a live encryption service. And whoever uses that based on the bandwidth that's provided for it can then take off into an encrypted onion for their for all intents and purposes, actually, not even just for their browsing, but like for their applications, for their services used. It can literally apply to every layer of the OSI as far as it will go. Now, my concept for that is how low can it go? You know, how much can actually be fit into the system process based on the chips that would be able to accommodate this type of housing for the modification to the kernel. So I had thought about this and tried to conceptualize it, and I understood that there are probably lower layer extensions and libraries that would need to be plugged into that in order for it to cover the entirety of the OS. Or, alternatively, the runtime environment could trigger a switch to use the VPN to cover as many layers as were possible with that as a test, and then that could be extended, I guess, through the Android systems process names, the system services, whatever it could be fit into it. And currently, my understanding is the x64 build for Android is accommodating a 64-bit type service accommodation. And for a lot of mobile devices, that's technically like, I want to say a 5 megabyte, or not 5 megabytes, it's a 5, say like, yeah, no, it's about a 5 megabyte transfer per file set or something to this effect, right? It could also be Oh no, it could be 50 megabytes. My memory is my memory is not what it used to be when it comes to recalling those types of data data allowances. But it could also be uh, modified, supposing there's enough bandwidth. So I don't want to get specific with details that can be altered. But let's say the cap for each transfer with the encryption, with everything that's included in it, the application sizes. Let's say it's 5 megabytes. 50 megabytes, 500 megabytes. Let's say it's that range, right? And 5 megabytes is not a lot of space, right? 50 megabytes is larger, but it's not enough. And let's say that actually, let's go big, right? 5 gigabytes could be the transfer inclusion. So supposing it's 5 gigabytes, we go big or go home, right? I'm going big with this. 5 gigabytes. It's still not a lot. Considering that some Android devices already have 60 and 120 and like whatever gigabytes of space as holding, some have terabyte storage space accommodations through SD cards or built in, whatever, could be an iOS consideration too. These things all come together the way that they do, and they just they have storage capabilities, but the chipsets don't have enough megahertz transfer speed to accommodate the VPS that would be triggering the self-hosted onion. So that is one of the things that I was trying to talk about with respect to how these things could be easily modified with more accommodating chipsets. You could have an RAM chip, you can have a Snapdragon Qualcomm type chip, which have always kind of accommodated more machine-like use and more machine friendly type of surface accommodation, like using graphics modules and using things that are conducive to a real like portable computer, as opposed to it just being like a smartphone that does cool stuff with pictures and stuff. I'm trying to you know I'm trying to condense what I'm saying into simple language, because people understand, oh yeah, smartphones are for really cool pictures, it's for pixels, it's for this and that, it's for a lot. The majority of users who have smartphones are looking for the photo qualities, maybe they have art projects and compositions they'd like to put together, but the same exact thing goes for programmers, the same exact thing goes for people who are using their phones as uh, portable communications devices on other applications, as sandboxes. I mean, there are actually a lot of use cases for a phone. And also, they could also be using certain phones for banking transfers. They could be using phones as hot wallets that are independent from other services they're using. There are just so many things that could be going on that really, ideally, need to be protected with a VPN for the sake of things not being taken, removed, or falsely copied to end up in other people's hands when they aren't the rightful owners of these materials. So I guess what I was really trying to get at there is, it is possible, theoretically, to build a phone that is fully encrypted with VPS interaction, with with the exciting concept that people could start hosting their own servers the way that they did in the 90s when they built their own websites and hosted their own cool indie websites. This is basically where some of the trending for actual people interest, well, like, I say actual people, but like actual interest, actual vested interest by people who take a liking and an actual appreciation for the privacy and security that is availed to them, and then want to bring their friends along. I mean, that's basically how this started in the 90s, from what I could tell. People trended the entire, like, get your friends in on building a website and a business and, start from the ground up type of thing. There was a lot of work that went into this. And a lot of people went underappreciated for how genius it was. And I feel like that would be a shame for a repeat in history. I feel like that's not what we should be repeating. We shouldn't be repeating on reliance on other sources to do what we can do. And I feel like this is very important to recognize that it's in our power now to build these things, to kind of put really cool projects together, and not to turn it into a capitalist, you know, dogfight. Like, it's not that anymore. Like, we have so many people's perspectives that we can join and actually make a really cool thing happen. Now, there are strengths and weaknesses in every single type I guess you could say, collective, every type of system to be designed, every type of joining of communities with different perspectives. There are always going to feel, there's always going to be, and there's always going to be a sense of, I just tripped myself, sorry. There's always going to be a sense of, a lack of compatibility, but actually what is a lack of compatibility is an exchange in different perspectives that could really build something cool. And I mean, you have families, you have people who are trying to protect their money, you have people who are just in it to have fun with the code, you have people who don't know what any of this means. It doesn't mean that any of us are not valuable to one another with respect to what we can exchange, teach each other. So I just figured I would put that out there, re-record the show, and do my best to be a little more clear in my speech, because even I was kind of confused after I reviewed my own content, and I felt I had to fix it. And as for some of the attacks that I was talking about, like man-in-the-middle attacks, decryption attacks, packet sniffing, this type of stuff can actually be seen on attack forums. I'll link them below because I always have difficulty remember the attack spelling, because it has it's like ATTACK.mitre might be the site, but I'm gonna find it for you and link it here just so you have it. And this particular website will actually annotate for you, which is like such a blessing, actually. It has been a very good resource in some of my research when I was trying to dissect things that I had actually experienced while people were targeting my work in order to destroy my originals. And it did happen, right? To destroy my originals, remove the copies of what I had worked on, and then try to replace it with something else, like it was some mirage, like I was crazy or something. And then started replicating my work and outsourcing it, thinking that it would just make me feel more crazy. There was financial proof why this was done to me, among other things. It was weird. It got weird. And that's why I do this stuff now. That's why I talk to you guys about this now, because like only one out of every like 1,500 cases is probably going to emerge with some proof that this is why they do these things. For money, for targeted attacks, for incentives that maybe can't be openly shared. There's there's a lot that can happen. There's a lot that could be happening. And I'm just here to tell you, let go of, your concept that things can't change. It can change. These things can change. But what this really is, if you're interested in creating something cool, you have the chance to do that. And it all starts with your interest in what you value. It all starts with the interest of what you value. And I mean, if this is something that changes your perspective for the better, I would love to hear what you thought about my particular model with, Java JREs in runtime, well, that was repetitive, Java runtime environments at like a kernel or OEM level, where it kind of just houses the entire thing in it, like a Ziploc bag. And based on the space, the byte accommodation, the power on accommodation for whatever or however that would be plugged in. I mean, it could trigger an onion leaf startup, and then each person could have their own onion leaf on their phone, be independent from other services that are a little too relied upon in order to be trustworthy for the proof that we have had of what happens. And also, I mean, we have a really nice self-concept of, self-governance, independence, and what it is that we can do with it in a light that isn't tinged by crime, that isn't tinged by, criminals using the tools, but it's more like what we're doing about it to avoid criminal behavior touching innocent people. Now, I understand there are going to be hackers who do nefarious things as people who just test stuff to see what's breaking. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people who genuinely go after and exploit vulnerable people, the disabled, the elderly, people who actually do not have any idea whether they're healthy or, on the verge of non-health or whatever. People who have no idea what's happening with their own need for consent, to be present for their own consent. This is a really important thing that I've been talking about for a long time. I got laughed at for asking, why does it bother you that you feel like you need consent? I literally got laughed at when I said that. And the truth of the matter is, this is where tech is going. If you are not given your right to consent, which I know has happened before with litigation, with laws that have been passed to structure and filter the internet in ways that don't actually serve anyone, because it doesn't. Like, it really didn't. Blocking people from viewing source, that's not going to fix anything, okay? Making it illegal to fix the problem, that won't fix anything. We need a view source, for example. We also need people who are going to be, I guess, receptive to the concept that in order to be good at technology and to protect people, you kind of have to be a hacker, okay? Like, this is just what it is. Not all of us lack an ethos. The ones who do, I mean, how dark can you go before you start realizing it's not going to work anymore? Like, everyone is not in a set and forget place with security and privacy anymore. It's time to get up and get going and really fix the problem. And then the fourth thing I'd like to address here is that with respect to how to help people, apart from these three problems, right? The fourth thing is, in order to help people, you kind of have to put your skin in the game and be like, okay, so how do I fix my problems, right? And that is kind of what I'm trying to convey here. If you have a phone, you already have the ability to solve your own problem. You just have to do a little research. And I, myself, have actually given you some leads on how to do that. You have Java runtime environments, or more compact runtime environments that could theoretically fit these software accommodations and these programs to trigger switches on and off for an onion to turn on in order to protect the rest of the wares on it when the kernel actually loads. And then there's another thing that could be done: chipsets that need to be a little more sizable. I mean, you don't want a phone that's the size of half of your laptop screen if your screen's like 14 inches long or wide. You don't want that much in your hand at once. You don't want like a mini tablet, but you do want a chip that's going to be able to accommodate the transfers necessary in order to run that without overheating, breaking, or posing any types of issues that really wouldn't help you get what you want done. And there is a risk for that. There is a risk of chips shorting out. There's a risk of there not being enough space for other applications to run then in the first place. And then from there, I mean, it would require some testing. It would require that. But there are also applications that already do a lot with very minimal storage that I'll also try to link below. I've mentioned these projects before, but they're like basically phones and devices that don't have a user interface that is graphical. It's mostly just like the bare bones, most minimal tech that's out there, and it is so secure because of this, because entire onions can fit around it and be like, boop, now everything's encrypted. So whether or not you can actually access anything because of the way that the communications are happening, you can also theoretically apply an onion to that and fully encrypt it as a secure, independently used and independently owned device. There's a lot that could happen. There's a lot of really cool stuff here. And I'm just here to be the messenger that the dawn of a really cool new age could actually be here. And I mean, if this matters to you, maybe it's something cool to tune into. But anyway, this has been Tired Goth redoing Computer Show 66 because I did not like the quality of how that went yesterday. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it mattered to you, and I hope it inspired you more so than anything. So I'll catch you guys later. Check out the links that I've included. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on your way out if you really like this show, and if you really like my content, feel free to share it. Feel free to like I said, contribute with a like, a thumbs up, a share. You can turn the notification bell on to follow my content to see when I post. I am working on getting back onto a schedule here, so sorry for any delays. And I will catch you guys later for the next episode that I put together. And I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. See you. Bye.